Earlier this year, I produced a top 10 games of 2023 video. And of course, that list can also double as a top 10 games that are better than Baldur's Gate 3 video. So upon reflection, I decided I really wanted to make a top 10 Switch RPGs that are better than Baldur's Gate 3. I explicitly wanted to talk about Dragon Quest XI and a handful of other games that I really, really love and really, really enjoy, right? I really did not believe when I first came up with the idea for this list that I could seriously produce a top 10 Switch games, a Switch RPG list of 2023 that are better than Baldur's Gate 3. So that's right, Switch RPG released in 2023 that are all better than Baldur's Gate 3. But the more research I did, the more I looked into it, I found several games that fit the bill. I suppose that just goes to show you just how unimpressive Baldur's Gate 3 actually is, that there are this many Switch games that are objectively better than it, but it is what it is, right? So this is just like a beginner entry-level primer thing going into like Switch RPGs that are objectively better than Baldur's Gate 3. But the point is to emphasize just how out of its depth Baldur's Gate 3, PC gaming, and like that entire sphere actually are when it comes to this kind of thing. Because there is a lot of stiff competition, so much so that quite a few of the games that I know are better than Baldur's Gate 3 are ones that I haven't even really played, all right? There are a couple of games that I found that came out this year, stuff like, some of the Trails games and Atelier that I don't really know anything about. So I know enough about them to tell you that they are better than Baldur's Gate 3, but, they're not on the list for that reason. So for that, I apologize. But I think that just goes to show you just how pathetic Baldur's Gate 3 actually is, where there are entire lists of games that I would play before that one, right? Baldur's Gate 3, even now, isn't even on my radar because there are just so many other better RPGs to play. So here are a handful of examples of titles that are simply better than Baldur's Gate. Let's get the obvious out of the way first. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is objectively a better game than Baldur's Gate 3. There's more going on, there's better pacing, there's a better world to explore, more interesting, unique mechanics, better innovations, more depth, a better story. The list really does go on and on. Tears of the Kingdom really is a phenomenal achievement in video games, and it's kind of embarrassing that the narrative that this is simply a lazy rehash of Breath of the Wild has persisted the way it has after launch. I'm certain that it isn't going to survive the next year or so. There are already signs that this game is already becoming a classic. But there's definitely been a lot of pushback to the idea that this game is Game of the Year material, or even a good game to begin with, right? That's kind of been the issue I've had over the past several months, is just the sheer amount of individuals who will try and tell you completely seriously that this game isn't good, that it's like overrated, that it doesn't live up to the hype, and nothing could be further from the truth. If anything, this game is the inverse of Baldur's Gate 3. If Baldur's Gate 3 is all hype and no substance, this game is all substance and almost no hype. It's kind of phenomenal that a game like this could have been written off the way it has, but I suppose that's what happens to Nintendo games in this industry. Two absolute classic GameCube RPGs released on Nintendo Switch. What could possibly go wrong with this? Well, honestly, these re-releases aren't great from what I've seen. I would recommend the GameCube originals over them if you could get them, but there is no denying that Baten Kaitos Origins in particular is one of my favorite RPGs of all time, with this incredibly unique combat system, gripping story, and just memorable, unforgettable locations and characters. This game is probably the reason that I love JRPGs as much as I do. It really sticks out to me as a truly unique, interesting entry in the genre, and one that I hope more people get exposed to, right? Like, I didn't play this version of the game myself, but there is no denying that this title is better than Baldur's Gate 3. That's right. This year got us the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster games on Switch. So, of course, classic Final Fantasy is always going to be more popular than anything D&D will ever produce. So, playing these games again has been an absolute treat. I finished Final Fantasy 1 for the first time, and I'm playing through Final Fantasy 6 now. And of course, I plan on playing the others, but there is no denying that each and every one of these games is a completely unique, distinct experience in the genre that far exceeds anything that any Western RPG has ever produced. These are among some of the best RPGs ever made. And the fact that, like, so many of them, over 30 years old now, still continue to impress to this day is quite the remarkable experience. And of course, Final Fantasy VI not only is one of the best RPGs on the Super Nintendo and one of the best RPGs released on Switch this year, but is also one of the best games of all time, right? Like, these games remain insanely popular and talked about. And I hope that they continue to be popular for years to come. One of the most unique and interesting RPG franchises ever made, Mega Man Battle Network, hit the eShops and other platforms with a vengeance. This game was incredible for its time. It's one of the best RPGs franchises on the Game Boy Advance, and even now on Switch, the game's really impressed with its unique aesthetic, its atmosphere, its setting, and its unique mechanics and combat system, right? There's really nothing else like it out there, and honestly, I would put this out there as one of my all-time favorite RPG franchises. Like, I love these games and really wish that more people would discover their unique charms. The Fire Emblem games have always been popular, but upon seeing Fire Emblem Engage, it couldn't be more obvious that Fire Emblem is able to innovate and evolve in ways that other RPG franchises can't even really dream of. Right? The fact that Nintendo was comfortable putting out something like this that's so radically different from not only other Fire Emblem games, but other strategy RPGs in general, really speaks volumes about how flexible the Fire Emblem IP actually is, right? These games have become increasingly complex with their evolved map mechanics, with their more intricate character arcs and designs, and just gorgeous animations. It's insane thinking back on this game and thinking what they were able to accomplish. And this is one of the most downplayed Nintendo Switch games that came out this year, right? This cracked my top 5 favorite Switch games of the year and was something that I was very over the moon about, very enthusiastic about. But this is just one of those games that a lot of people have tried writing off just because it's a Nintendo Switch game, when in reality, it's an incredibly stellar strategy RPG game. It far exceeds Baldur's Gate 3. It far exceeds games like Total Warhammer 3 or like any of its real competitors. Like, Fire Emblem has kind of established itself as the best strategy RPG franchise out there, and I wish that more people gave it the credit it deserves. Hogwarts Legacy is the best-selling game of 2023. It is a major milestone of the year and a major accomplishment for the studio. They managed to take a beloved IP, Harry Potter, and adapt a video game out of it. Right, it's not the best game ever made or anything. They made some obvious mistakes. Like, the franchise has had problems evolving past its initial concept. But in a lot of ways, this is the best attempt I've ever seen. It's better than the play, it's better than like the film sequels. Like, they actually tried evolving the property beyond what we've seen in the past. And you have to give it a lot of credit for that. And for what it's worth, like a lot of people seem to be really impressed with the game in general. People who are like casual gamers who don't maybe play a lot of games who are only interested in like the Harry Potter brand seem to have come away like fairly impressed with it. And that's more than I can say for anything Baldur's Gate 3 has managed to accomplish. One of the all-time classics, Harvest Moon 64, features a surprisingly robust farming system, an engaging plot, and memorable, charming characters. This is one of the all-time N64 greats. Super Mario RPG is a game older than even the first Baldur's Gate. And yet it is aged significantly better with better animations, better gameplay, and all around is just a superior experience. Super Mario RPG has kind of established itself as a fan favorite for a lot of people, and upon my most recent playthrough, I really began to understand just what made this game so spectacular when it first came out. And with the minor updates with the remake, the game, which was already great, has become even better. This is a really interesting RPG that I hope has done really well and will continue to do well in the future. I hope that the success of this game is going to lead to a future of high quality Mario RPGs from Nintendo. It's been a long time since we've gotten a good one, and this, I hope, is a positive sign that they are ready to get back into it and make something like this once again.